With so much political division, is it going to take something catastrophic to unite our country? Or do you see something like that even making a difference, as sad as that is to say?
I'll close on this point is that, yeah, I believe if we had a catastrophic event, it would certainly unify the nation, but I certainly don't want that to happen.
We begin with a new and disheartening poll on the direction of where our country is headed and what they reveal about the core values that have defined us as a country for generations. New Wall Street Journal polls showing patriotism, religious faith, having children, and hard work have declined in importance to Americans. Check this out. Patriotism plummeted over the last 25 years. Back in 1998, 70% of those surveyed ranked it as being very important to them. Now, just 38% feel that way. More than 60% said religion was very important to them in 1998. Today, well, it's less than 40%. And family values like having children also have dropped sharply. In 1998, 59% of Americans believed having children was very important. Now, just 30% do. The polls are not entirely surprising. We have seen the deterioration of America's core values right before our very eyes. You don't have to look far. From the distortion of the American flag as a symbol of patriotism into one of oppression. And while the kneeling for our national anthem on one football field, well, that was applauded pretty widely, the kneeling of a Christian high school football coach, Coach Kennedy, in prayer on another football field, that got him fired. It took the Supreme Court to right that wrong. Meanwhile, children are being taught that America is systemically, racist. And for those of you without kids, well, the left says don't have them for the sake of the planet. The polls just reaffirm what we've been witnessing for decades, the decline of American values that have helped define the national character of our country. Harris, you look at the direction, particularly of our young people, the fentanyl overdoses, the 1 in 3 girls that are considering suicide, the social media addictions, all of the maladies that are plaguing a generation. And you've got to believe this has something to do with it, deterioration of faith, of family, of country.
According to a new Wall Street Journal NORC poll, Americans are pulling back from values that once defined the U.S. Priorities such as patriotism and religion have fallen compared to those who were interviewed back in 1998. There are the numbers for you. The only priority that has grown in importance is money, with 42% of those surveyed saying it is very important. So joining us now, News Nation political editor Chris Steyerwalt and senior national security contributor, retired Air Force Lieutenant General Richard Newton. Thank you both for being here. Chris, we're going to start with you. Patriotism, work ethic, faith. If these 3 tenets are less important to Americans, should politicians be looking to other tenets to maybe run on and focus on?
Well, God help us if we have to rely on our politicians to see us through these troubles, because we need a better batch. The reality, when you see stories like the one that leads the news today, when you see institutions that fail, when you see human behavior at its worst, and very often Americans unable to respond to those moments with the love and compassion that they need, the loss of belief in these structures is sad but understandable. And we have a political class that is way better at exploiting these problems than trying to remedy them.
All right, General Newton, I'm going to kick it over to you now. The importance of patriotism dropped nearly 50%, 70% back in 98. It's now down to 38%. What is your reaction to that? And do you think that that's reflected in some of the trouble all the branches seem to be having with recruitment?
Well, it sure does, and I certainly echo Chris's sentiments. It's a dour sentiment, but it's fact. It's almost as if we were becoming a nation no longer united, but a nation divided, and it's now working its way into the military in terms of, as you mentioned, Nicole, recruiting and so forth. Right now, we are at about 75% of being able to meet our recruiting goals. That's based on 2022. That's unheard of. When I was Deputy Chief of Staff of the Air Force, I would testify in Congress, and really our recruiting and frankly our retention was very high. We had people standing in line, and so did the other services. The other factor here is that where we can recruit from in terms of the base of Americans from 17 to 35 years old and so forth, it used to be about 30%. That would be based on medical qualifications and moral ethics, no drug use and breaking the law and that type of thing, and as well as the armed forces, mental exams. So, but that number's gone from 30% down to 23%. I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you, but the challenge is that we're getting a dwindling pool of young Americans that we can recruit from, much less, the fact that they're even enticed or even informed enough to want to join the military. That's very concerning.
Well, General, I want to stay with you because you mentioned the fact of a nation divided. So then this question is for both of you, but General, we'll kick it to you first. With so much political division, is it going to take something catastrophic to unite our country? Or do you see something like that even making a difference, as sad as that is to say?
Well, I sure hope not. Of course, I was on duty at Commander Minot Air Force Base during the morning of 9/11, and that was an extraordinary unifying moment. I'm sure Chris has his stories as well, and from those experiences. I hope it doesn't. But the challenge is, and I'll just kind of keep it along on the military lines of the national security piece, is the mission of our military, our men and women, our 2 million men and women, by the way, I believe are the best and brightest this nation's ever seen, but their job is to fight and win our nation's wars. The challenge is they've got all these domestic political issues and trying to bring in other avenues of the culture wars and just really keeping them not focused on fighting and winning our wars. That's very concerning. So there's external elements here, but there's also internal elements to the certainly what's happening with our recruiting pool. I'll close on this point is that, I believe if we had a catastrophic event, it would certainly unify the nation, but I certainly don't want that to happen. Our mission is really to fight and win our nation's wars and deter conflict, not to bring on one where we show weakness and therefore we've got conflict on our shores.
Well, before we go, Chris, I want to kick it over to you. I mean, do you think it's going to take catastrophe to unite us here?
Catastrophe always comes. It is the human experience. It is human nature. Societies and nations are either able to come together and meet those answers or not. And we have always known in the United States that this freedom, this liberty, this extraordinary opportunity that we get to enjoy is not a guarantee. And self-government requires self-control. And if we don't have enough self-control to govern ourselves, we could lose our way in a more profound fashion. And let's just hope it doesn't come to that.